Hello everyone, we've reached the last video in the series looking at grabbing data from a database and sending it through with the response to a request so that we can display it on our interface. Just a quick recap of what we did. We began by connecting to a database. We then created a migration so that we could name our table and define its structure. We then populated that database table with dummy data using a factory and a seeder. And then finally, we created a controller where we queried the table to fetch records. And then we connected that controller to a route so that when a request is made to that route, the data is sent in the response, the data from our table, that is. And that's basically where we ended up. And that leads us to this video where we're going to display that data using our interface builder. Now I'm going to cheat a little. I already scoped out this template in Tailwind UI. I'm just going to copy the HTML and using the import markup screen, I'm just going to import it. So there we have, that was fast work. I've noticed there's a little issue here. I'm going to correct that just by navigating through the elements. And there's this quick attribute edit panel. I can just remove those characters and put my apostrophe in there. Right, back to the top level. So we have our data. It's sitting down here. If you click on the variable, you can see that our data exists, and we need to iterate over it somehow. And that just requires a bit of thought. You just need to think about, well, which element are we going to use? We're going to iterate over. And we have this UL, this list element here, and within that we'll have a list item, and the list item strikes me as a good candidate for our loop. Currently it's a layout element. We need to switch it to a loop element, at which point the markup disappears because the loop element is expecting a data source, and we don't have it hooked up to a data source just yet. To do that, we'll just select a variable to act as our data source, and then because we have 10 people, we now have 10 little cards here. One of them's hiding behind the panel there. So we have 10 cards, but we haven't actually hooked up any fields as yet. So to do that, again, you just need to think about, well, which field are we hooking up to, which element? This H3 element here contains the name as it stands. That sounds like a good candidate to me to switch out with our data. So to do that, again, we have to go to the data source tab, but this time we're selecting an attribute. We could have stored a link in our database table, and that could have been sent through in this object, and we could have selected that and hooked it up to the href attribute. So we can choose different attributes here, but for our purposes, we just want to replace the text for this element with the name field. Okay, so I'll select the name field, and you might think at that point you might expect the name to be on display. However, because the name has already been populated, the text field rather has already been populated with this name, that takes precedence over the data. Okay, so all I need to do is remove that text, and there we have it. We have our data displayed on our interface. That was perhaps much faster than you might have anticipated. We've got an interface now. It contains the data from our server. And I'm going to leave it there. There's so much I can talk about, but I've already thought about the fact that I should really just stop there, because everything I can discuss from this point forward really deserves its own series, its own set of videos. So I'm going to stop there. If you want to ask me any questions, you can do that in the comments beneath the video, or catch up with me on social media. You know, I'm quite responsive on X, on YouTube, and where else am I? I'm on Reddit. I'm on most of these platforms. So if you want to ask me a question directly, you're more than welcome to. And I hope to see you in the next series. The next series is probably going to focus on interfaces in actual fact, because there's so much to dig into here. So if that's of interest to you, keep in the loop with what I'm doing, and tune in. See you there.